أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآله الطاهرين. Let's recite the dua for the health and protection of the Imam Mahdi alayhi salam on this auspicious and joyful day, the birth anniversary of him all together inshallah. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم كل وليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. اللهم اجعلنا من أنصاره وعوانه. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Another quick check. So is the audio okay? And can you see the screen? Okay, thank you. So those of you, I don't know how many friends that they are online. They were attending last night's session presentation here in Imam Al-Asr. So there was a brief presentation about the story of mother of Imam Mahdi alayhi salam, Lady Narjis. And I briefed the attendees here about the story, mainly based on the narration that is recorded in the Kitab Kamaluddin. So I don't want to repeat all the presentation last night. There are resources that everyone can go back and check. But quickly, before we go to details and in material, I wanted to maybe mention this. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. That the story of Lady Narjis salamullah alayha has been mentioned and recorded in two hadith in our corpus. One is very brief, just pointing out to the lineage of Lady Narjis connect to the Caesar of the Rome or Byzantine. And the other one, which that one is from Muhammad ibn Abdul Jabbar, I mentioned it last night. And the other one is narrated from her, from Lady Narjis herself, by someone called Bishr in a very detailed story, and with the task that Imam al-Hadi alayhi salam gave to Bishr and all the stories that you know. So that was the story that is narrated in the Shi'i sources. The question that we had was, in that story, there are a lot of details. There are some challenges, if you like. There are some points that we are wondering, can we accept those? So, or do they stop us from accepting that report? Or is there any external text evidences corroborating the story? So those are the surrounding questions that we, of course, I didn't want to go to those details last night. That is mainly for, of course, more focused group and people that are more interested in these historical discussions. With that, I want to go over some slides that I put together with a disclaimer. I will mention it also. Please, it's not good to say, but lower your expectation in terms of time and quality of the slides compared to last night. The whole thing, I would still say, kind of miraculous. Like we didn't plan for these two sessions, and alhamdulillah, some events happened, and then quickly I thought that might be a good idea to do this. So, and I spent most of my time on the last night content, and although tonight's going to be more scholarly and deep dive, but I think people are more interested about the content than decorations and things like that. Okay, so before we start, let's recite a salawat and give it as a as a gift to Imam Mahdi alayhi salam. Allah. I should mention this acknowledgement before going forward, that the content, the research that I'm going to present tonight is the work of other researchers. And I'm just honored to share the findings, the journey. I happened to have a minimal involvement, rather being in touch with them. I will mention this story, but I should mention this that these researchers, Hadi Taghavi as a prime investigator, if you will, the main lead of the team, and two other researchers that they were doing the research, the findings and the content are their work, not mine. But I'm just honored to share those. And I myself, together with friends here, will learn and inshallah add to our knowledge. Okay, so with that, a little bit of background needs to be mentioned. I said, again, the story quickly tonight, and then in details last night, the story of Lady Narjis and what we called it the autobiography, because she was telling her story after when Besh was shocked and kind of put her on a spot that why you are kissing and respecting this letter that I gave you in the Roman language and Roman script, and you don't know the author who wrote it, the Imam Mahdi. And she said, how come you say that? You have a low level of ma'rifah of the progeny of Ahlul Bayt. I know him very well. Then she started telling her story. So that report has a lot of, as I mentioned, a lot of connections between the details that are mentioned there and the Roman Christian history. So, of course, for researchers, that can spark like ideas. How about we go ahead and do a comparative research and see if there are any external text or extra text evidences or historical facts outside of the Muslim and Shi'i corpus and the body of knowledge that can support the details or some aspects that are mentioned in that story. So that was about 20 years ago that those researchers, they were like, okay, let's see if we can take a different path, different approach in this investigation, solving one of the mysteries that is more than 1,000 years old, which of course is very, very hard and challenging. So they studied this story at the beginning and then captured some of the themes or points that can be examined and checked, and then came up with a framework that so that's a typo. I had the disclaimer, 16 peer-reviewed academic papers. So the plan was to have these research, if come to the good finding. Can you please sit on the other side if you don't mind? Because I don't want to miss looking at your face, and but there are chairs as if you want grab. Yeah. The aspects, themes, details, whatever we call it, that can be examined separately and then can be published in important, high-impact, peer-reviewed journals. Those that are in academia or have done this type of research, especially in religious-related research, the jury or peer reviewers are very, very sensitive to make sure that no one takes the opportunity of journal articles as a platform for polemic discussions or just propaganda in a good way, like, again, tabligh, of your faith or belief. That's good, but you have to keep it in churches, mosques, or different places. The academic journals are not a place for these. So they are very, very sensitive when such topic, such article reaches the reviewers. And that's very important, inshallah, I will mention. So alhamdulillah, till now, out of those 16 target papers, 5 are completed and 3 already published and 2 are under review. So, and I want to also mention some notes before we go to the next slide. Back then, the team, it was amazing, very impressive. They were like, if we want to do the cross-examination, we cannot stick to, of course, Islamic resources and Arabic language or English. We have to learn Greek. We have to learn Latin. We have to learn Hebrew. So they invested a lot of time to the point that, again, I know because I've been in touch with them, and for many years, they became even teachers and experts in those languages, which was amazing. So they can go and look at the primary sources. And then when again, I was sometimes helping finding a book or article in different languages that we here had access, and for some reason they didn't have access. So I knew like these challenges that they were going through. So again, I put these here. Of course, the previous slide is black. This one is white. So these are all, they go all back to the disclaimer. The academia page of Hadi Taghawi and Ehsan Ruhi are there. I encourage, again, friends, go and check. Those are interested. Specifically, Ehsan Ruhi has done tremendous, fascinating research about the life of Prophet. Some of the challenges that, again, we have in the history of Islam, he had brilliant discoveries. For example, I don't want to distract ourselves, but like, for example, some of the accounts that are related to Prophet in some of the wars, Bani Qurayza, those stuff, he has done like amazing research those, so you can see them on his page. So 4 articles that are the basis of this presentation are, you can see it here, started from 2019. The first one, which was an ignored Arabic account of a Byzantine royal woman. So the title is very interesting. And the Al-Masaq is a journal by Exeter University, and they are one of the top journals in the Byzantine Islamic studies. It took a long time to get approved, as I said, because they were very sensitive. Something is coming up. Now you are claiming that you have something, an account, a report that was ignored by Byzantine researchers. So we have to be very careful. But like after the peer review process, they were like amazed and impressed, and it got published. So again, some details about the life of Caesar Bardas that inshallah we're going to get to know him, and the relationship between Mahdi and last Roman emperor. And also the last one is very interesting, the earthquakes or some other events that happened, the trace of those in the Byzantine sources. So there are a couple of points, or if you will, three fundamental foundation for the research that they had in mind, which is really important. I want to mention it here and have discussion before we go to the details. One was having a miraculous element in a story by default doesn't mean it is fabricated. Okay? You will see these foundations may look somehow contradictory, but they're important to mention. That you may have a story that has miraculous points, For example, the story of Prophet Ibrahim or Musa, or almost most of the prophets that are mentioned in Quran. Someone from outside cannot, just because of it looks like a fairy tale, right? Stories. Exactly. You cannot, just because it has some miraculous, unbelievable pieces into that, say, okay, this is fabricated or made up a story. And this becomes important that, again, we take this. I have to mention something else as well. We may switch hats as a Shia Muslim or as a secular researcher, okay? Or they had to do that as well. Of course, when you are presenting an article for a journal, you should not have the hat of Shia Muslim there. I believe in miracles or so on. But internally, when we are discussing these are important to remember that just because of miraculous elements, we cannot by default believe that this is fabricated, right? Especially, we know this has been the tradition or sunnah of Allah in honoring and highlighting the life of important figures, prophets. For example, Prophet Musa alayhi salam. His birth was hidden. The entire journey of his life is something different. And it makes sense. Why? Because Musa alayhi salam had a very unique mission. Jesus, peace be upon him, same story. Of course, expectation is for us as a Shia Muslim, someone that his mission, Imam Mahdi alayhi salam, is not even close to Musa alayhi salam. Like, it's a global mission, a universal prophecy that all religions, they have given prophecies and bisharah about it. Of course, the expectation is it should be somehow different, right? But that doesn't mean we just accepted whatever that is. And that's also the second point here that is important. That narration, we know and we acknowledge, is not a mutawatir in the technical terms of hadith. It is one narration, although it has 2 or 3 different chains from the book of Bahr Shaybani, who narrated it from Bish. I didn't have time to mention it. Again, I encourage you to read the beginning of the story. Bahr Shaybani says, I had that encounterment with Bish in Karbala, if I'm not mistaken. And Bish was very, very old. And after some back and forth, he shared that amazing story with me. And he was the author, Shaybani. And then from that book, there are 2 chains by Sheikh al-Saduq and Sheikh al-Tusi, Rizwanullah alayhima. But having said that, that's considered one hadith. 2 chains, but one hadith. So it's not mutawatir. Compared or in contrast with the big body of knowledge, the ahadith that we have about Imam Mahdi himself, his birth. It's interesting that I mentioned, again, today is the day of Imam Mahdi alayhi salam specifically. Some of you may know him, Dr. Mudarrisi, the Princeton professor. So he has a very interesting quote about the ahadith about Imam Mahdi. He calls them as a, what do we call it? The mankind memory, something that a heritage for mankind. That the number of ahadith that are narrated in relation to the birth and the life of Imam Mahdi is something that if you say, okay, we put those aside, there is nothing else that in a historical world history, basically you can accept. Because of the super tawatur. Super tawatur is a term that I coined, right? Super mutawatir. Mutawatir means like very, very frequent, different sources, but super tawatur is something about that, right? So this narration, this report, this account of Lady Narji salamullah alayha is not mutawatir. So we keep that in mind. And it's not like the reports about Imam Mahdi himself. So the researchers, they were like, that's why we have to be very open to any critique. We will not be like, okay, this is about Imam Mahdi, so close your eyes, accept whatever is there. So now this is the different hat I mentioned. To be very critical, pinpoint or try to find evidences in support of that. Now, the last foundation for this research was, again, I assume friends here are different backgrounds, so I think it's worth mentioning some of these background. History is not math. Some of you might be engineers, some of you might be nerd in math and love to see everything from a math lens, right? That everything 2 times 2 should be crystal clear. No, that's not history in general. I'm talking about general history, right? History is a different realm, right? So you look at evidences, you look at some clues, hints, supportive things that may make it, and at the end of the, and remember, we are not talking about 50 years ago, a 50-year ago event. No, we are talking about an event that happened almost 1200 years ago. So of course the expectation is we will not have every and all details, and there might be evidences that makes us believe that yes, there is what they call it kernel of truth, right? A core that yes, there are truth into that, and inshallah we'll mention those in more details. So not necessarily every single detail that was mentioned in this story, the expectation is not to be verifiable. For example, those, again, you may remember last night, Imam Mahdi alayhi salam told Bish that when you go there, you will see that lady who has 2 thick cloth of silk. Ahsan. Okay, where is the evidence? Can you show me the DNA of that silk, that it was not cotton, it was silk? Brother, we're talking about 1200 years ago. Even nowadays, you cannot confirm the material of my clothes, right? So, and again, these are not to ignore or say, okay, yeah, it's easy. No, this is history. We're talking about those events, so we should keep those in mind. Okay. Alhamdulillah, not last night. I don't have the timer, but we'll try to, inshallah, be like respect the time. All right. So let's move forward and get to more details, inshallah. Okay. So there are a couple of challenges or points in that story that at the very beginning was an obstacle or question. First and foremost, but this is the easy one, was where was Rome? When you hear the word Rome, what comes to your mind nowadays? Italy. Exactly. Ahsan. And understandably, when we read Quran, for example, غُلِبَتِ الرُّوم فِي أَدْنَى الْأَرْضِ, say, oh, there was a battle probably in Italy, Rome, Vatican, maybe. Just let's go and trace the history. If we do that, what's going to happen? We'll find nothing, because the Rome has 2 implications. Assalamu alaikum. Because I want to be fair, I asked brother Muhammad Sajjadi also to sit here so I can look at their beautiful faces. But feel free. I know I'm older, so you can sit on the chairs, by the way. Tonight is not that. Feel free, whatever. Anyway, so recite the salawat. So first question is Rome, right? Because in that hadith, in both hadiths actually, the shorter one from Muhammad ibn Abdul Jabbar and the longer one, she said in the second one, and Imam Askari in the first one said, Ibn Qaysar, Malik al-Rum. So Rum or Rome is the question. It is important to know and pay attention to this note that you see on the screen. We are talking about 2 different Romes. One is ancient Rome, which is Western Rome Empire, and the capital was Rome, nowadays Italy, from 27 BCE or BC to 476, more or less. Again, these are not necessarily sharp lines, but we have what we call it Eastern Rome or Rum Sharqi, Eastern Rome, which the capital is Constantinople or Istanbul or Constantinople, right? Again, this is less formal. So, you know, in Iran or other places, when they want to tease a kid, when they try to learn speaking and all, you know, this first word that they put them on the spot to pronounce is what? Is Constantinople. They say, okay, say Constantinople. If you can say that, that means you have learned Farsi or other languages. So now for me, it's very easy to pronounce. But nowadays, we may stick to Istanbul. Istanbul or Constantinople was the capital of Eastern Rome or Rum Sharqi or Byzantine Empire, which in Islamic texts, Quran and other places, when they're talking about Rome, it is Constantinople, Istanbul, and Byzantine Empire in general, which basically, I'm sorry, I clicked it twice. This is just, yes, of course. That, okay, so this is important. It was not new. That was not a discovery for this research, but it's important to pay attention to that and not be misled looking at Italy and see, oh, why we don't see any Caesar or anything. You see what I'm saying? Because, for example, may Allah bless Sayyid Suleiman and prolong his life. Do you know where he's born? Medina. Which Medina? Saudi Arabia? No, Medina, New York. Seriously, did you know that? Okay, let's recite the salawat for him. Allah. So when I'm talking with my friends, we have a scholar say it here in America, born and raised in America, and then they Google and say, oh, it says it's in Medina. I just want you to make that connection when I'm talking about the confusion. They're like, what? Medina? But you said he's American. I said, bro, it's American. In America, we have Damascus, we have Medina, Iskandaria. I'm in Alexandria. We are in Alexandria, right? Iskandaria. So sometimes we make joke and say, you know what? I'm in Iskandaria, not in Egypt here. You see, Iskandaria is Iskandaria, but one can be in America, one can be in Egypt. Medina can be in New York, even not New York City, far from there. That's the point. So that was one thing that to pay attention to. And now we say, oh, we were looking at the wrong place. Let's switch gears. Instead of looking at, I hope I can move my mouse, Rome. No, exactly. We have to come closer to Constantinople, Istanbul, right? So that was the first step. That was not that hard. Now, there was a second challenge, which it seemed easy, but that was very hard. So these are some of the maps of old Istanbul or Constantinople. Of course, we don't have time. Again, this is another disclaimer. Tonight, we will not, this is just to touch the surface, scratch the surface, just to intrigue your and get your attention, be interested. We cannot cover the details, just going quickly, a presentation and moving forward. So there are history, and we will see how some of these are very important in the story of Lady Narjis, different places and different palaces and locations that were in Istanbul. And there are some rendering based on I just wanted to add these as a, to look at it. So this is the place that they did horse, basically races, and also that's a different palace. And again, Byzantine, of course, is a center of a lot of research, so they did a lot of reconstruction. So let's watch this quick clip and then move forward. Friends online, I assume you can see the. Also, can you see it? Like, is it shown? Good. Thank you.
No audio, right?
No audio. Yeah, I can skip. I forgot to mention the to your point, brother, the fact about Rome. I think I skipped that from the text. Let me go back because this professor, we need him and coming, and we'll see an interview with him. They worked on it. The which Rome. You see, there is an article by Koray Durak. Dr. Durak is a professor in the Boğaziçi University in Istanbul, and he studied in here in America, I believe, in Harvard, and then he's back in Boğaziçi. Boğaziçi is one of the best universities in Turkey for historical and history studies. So he has a lot of articles, and again, we're gonna watch a short interview with him. So this article, this is the name or the title of the article. Who are the Romans? The definition of Bilad al-Rum. Bilad al-Rum, or the land of the Romans, it's something common in the Islamic literature. So he specifically discussed this. What is Bilad al-Rum and what is they referring to? Talking about what we are saying, that we should not confuse Medina in New York with Medina in Saudi Arabia. The Rome or Bilad al-Rum in Islamic literature is referring to Eastern Rome, Constantinople. Exactly. Yes. Yes. Disciples of, yes. Exactly. Okay. So that's exactly, that's the what she has mentioned. So we are trying to see if there are any mention of these in that story. In the yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. Exactly. That's very true. Yes, yes. Exactly. That's one of the main reasons that we are having this. And again, last night's session was just a story, but now we are going to the some details. So these are sorry, I'm multitasking. So let me admit friends that they are in the waiting room. So yes, so that's an easy question. Next one is actually way harder, and that's gonna be an has been an obstacle for a lot of researchers to accept this story. So Rome is an easy question, but yes, I agree that when we are talking to our kids, we should mention that Rome, as I said, and maybe some real examples, Medina, I said those for a reason, that we may have same name for two different places, but we should know which one we are talking about. So, um, okay. And these are the basically remainders of the Great Palace in Istanbul. Inshallah, when you go, inshallah, after these presentations, we'll go to Istanbul with different intention. That was the thing. I remember, I'll mention when they came to Istanbul, I was living in Ankara. We went together to Boğaziçi and other places. and I was helping like finding things. And then I was like, Istanbul always for us is like Istanbul, fun city, right? But if you know and remember, this is the place that mother of Imam Mahdi was born and raised, and this palace, a great palace, Hagia Sophia, others, that you are going there, just where her childhood was there. It's like different, vibe or uh, feeling when you are there. Anyway, so the second, yet way more harder challenge was the simple question of who was the Caesar, Caesar, or Caesar. In the narration, as you know, Lady Narji salamullah alayha says, my name is Malika, daughter of son of Caesar, Malik al-Rum, the emperor of the Rum. We solved the Rum problem. The challenge is the emperor of Eastern Rome. We came to the right place. But when we are looking at the emperors, the list of emperors of the Eastern Rome, Byzantine, we see something weird. Who was the emperor of that time during the time of our target age or our target year, 227 Hijri to 253? It was Mikhail or Michael the Third. Michael the Third has a very interesting story. His father passed when his father passed. He was only 3, so 3 or 2. So he became emperor. And then later on, there are a lot of stories and details. There was a coup d'etat by Basil I, the one, and they killed Michael III at the age of 27. Do the math. How is that possible? Lady Narjis comes and claims that I am the granddaughter of the emperor of the Rome. Rome, again, we solved it. It looked easy, but when they started, and that has been an obstacle for a lot of researchers, Muslim researchers, which again, I understand. As I said, like example of Rome or Medina, Alexandria. The expectation was when we read that story, we go to list of emperors of Byzantine Empire, and then we see Michael the Third, and we say, okay, that doesn't make sense. That cannot be true. Emperor Michael the Third cannot be the grandfather of Lady Narjis. He was at the same time of Mu'tasim and Mutawakkil, and his father Theophilus, he was in the time of Ma'mun and Mu'tasim. So that's a challenge. You think that's easy, but that was very hard, and you see that in a lot of I don't want to call them research, but a lot of books or even by scholars that that doesn't make sense. So at least I think it's important to mention, when you see something like this, there are 2 approaches that you can take, even about our ahadith. One is say, you know what, that doesn't add up, so that's wrong. That's a made up story. That's lie. We tag it as a fabrication and put it aside. Or we can say, I don't know. I cannot accept it. I put it aside, but I don't call it fabrication. These are 2 different approaches. I want to emphasize, I know this is not the time for the discussion about history of hadith, but unfortunately, some people, when they see something weird, let's be honest, they say, oh, you know what? That's made up. That's wrong. That's a lie. Putting that tag on something needs evidence as well. You have all the right to say, I cannot believe it. Michael III was the emperor. He died at the age of 27. He could not practically have a granddaughter of the age 13, period. I don't accept that. Yes. Exactly. Exactly. Salam. Yes. Yes. Exactly. So that's where we are heading, inshallah. So, and by the way, Brother Fitz, I'll task you to stop me whenever we are going out of town. Wow, it's already 7:30. No, that's the mystery. That's the mystery. Hold on to that question. That's it. $1 million question. As I said, that's what caused some people, they don't accept that because they were like, their hidden assumption or they presume that Caesar is the emperor. That was after the issue is solved, the problem is solved. Now we know they were confused the rank Caesar with the rank emperor. I will inshallah explain it in coming slides. But I will inshallah go, and that's the very important. So I think this is a very good, helpful table, just the timeline, Byzantine emperors, and then Shia imams, salawatullah alayhim ajma'in, both in Hijri and Gregorian dates, right? So whenever I want to, I go back to this. This is very helpful. So you see, for example, the birth of Imam Askari, the birth of Michael III, as we talked about, and then how they were at the same time, of course, one in Baghdad and Samarra, the other in Istanbul. But basically, as you can see, when he was killed, Michael III, he was like 27. At that time, Imam Mahdi alayhi salam was almost 40. But I think, yes, Bardos, we don't have it here. That's good. So again, technically, he could not have that granddaughter. And Imam Hadi alayhi salam, when he arrived, when Imam Hadi alayhi salam arrived in Samarra, Michael, the emperor, was how many year old? Let's see if you can find it in the table. 8. Ahsan. So we don't know exactly from the story of Bish what year Imam Hadi tasked him, but if it was after, and we know when Imam Hadi alayhi salam was martyred, right? So again, there is no way in between that this could happen. Now, the solution, the key to that important, challenging question was studying the Byzantine political structure in the Byzantine resources. Because Muslims, Arabs, I'm not picking on Muslim as they are Muslim, but Arabs, they are different area, different country, different culture. They, of course, they don't know the details of traditions, the ranks, the political structure of Byzantine Empire. I said this as a joke. Again, to change the environment a little bit, not too much joke, but this is important. When I say two different cultures, if you go to Tehran, right, Al-Farouq, when you go to Tehran, maybe nowadays it's social media time, okay, everyone knows, but 15, 20 years ago, if you go to Tehran or Tehran is the capital, a little bit farther cities, or I don't know about Pakistan or other countries, I pick on Iran, right? And you ask a random guy just, hey, have you seen Kach Safid, White House? So, of course. And do you have pictures? Can you show it to me? You know what they show you? The Congress. The imagination of people back when they hear the word Kach means palace. Like Congress. That is Koch. That's the palace, not this like cubic shape White House. It cannot be, right? Again, we understand them, but they are wrong, right? So think about it this way. A researcher and Muslim historian and Arab historian, thousands of miles away, when he sees the word Caesar and Malik, it's not, oh, Caesar is Caesar, Malik is emperor. They're like, okay, they're the same. No, that was the golden key to that challenging question. They discovered that Caesar and emperor are two different ranks. Caesar, Caesar, was often a military commander in chief. Okay. In cases, or actually in most cases, they are the same. Emperor and commander in chief are the same person. But in rare occasions, which actually the story of Lady Narjis happened to be one of them, they were two people. Why? For obvious reasons. How many year old was Michael when he became emperor? I'm taking quiz, right? 2, 3, right? So of course he a 3-year-old boy cannot be commander in chief of Byzantine Empire. But because of the political structure and the norms of and the rules and the laws of empire, he is the emperor. But we will have the Caesar, the Caesar, the commander in chief is someone else. Who in that time, his name was Bardas, who was the maternal uncle of the Emperor Michael III. Okay, Khal, or in Farsi, Dai, or maternal uncle. Right? So Caesar Bardas, Caesar Bardas, was the uncle of Michael III, which actually we will see in the Byzantine resources that, first of all, he was elderly enough to have grandchildren. It was mentioned that he was basically not only ranked as Caesar, rather he was the de facto ruler of Byzantine for years. For years, he was the real person who was running the empire, because Michael was just a child. And interestingly, it is again mentioned in the Byzantine resources that Caesar Bardas was highly educated and was really promoting education. And even, if I'm not mistaken, this is, I remember from memory, when we went to Istanbul, meeting with some of his scholars, he established the first university type in that area. He was so promoting that. And those that they were, and that is something no Muslim historian knew about it. Of course, again, what do you expect? But this is something that Lady Narjis mentioned. And that is one of those extra or external points that we are like, wow. If someone had to fabricate this story, by the way, let's remember, the original report is not in 6th or 7th century of Islam. It is like 1,000 years ago. Sheikh Saduq, they were in the time of, was born in the time of Ghaybat al-Sughra, so about, maybe 1,100 years ago. So that report is way old. Now we are examining that report. So the question is, if that was fabricated, who fabricated it? It is not, I'm not saying possible again in a mathematical way, but in a logical way, it doesn't make sense that a historian, Arab, make up that story with such level of details that was not known to people in Arabia or in Arabic world. We'll see some evidences from Tabari and others. So when Lady Narjis is just casually talking about her grandfather, says, yes, my grandfather appointed a teacher who taught me Arabic, and she was his interpreter, and I became fluent in Arabic. My grandfather really encouraged me to educate and learn. You see, wow. In the Byzantine history, we see, but after we identify the Caesar Bardas, we say, wow, okay, characteristics make sense, matched. And also he was, again, we'll see some of the examples. He was considered one of the most influential Byzantine figures. He was not a, you read the stories of the kings and the Shah in different countries. Some are weak, some are more powerful, and they are bold, right? Caesar Bardas was one of them. So you can see here that the title was more frequently awarded to second and third born sons. And then they give an example that Bardas, sorry, I should look at, who was the uncle and chief minister of Michael III, is an example of one of those cases that the title of Caesar or Caesar is given to someone different than the emperor. Okay, I hope so far so good. So let's recite the Salawat. So back then, I think this was how many years ago? 17 years ago or a little less. They did an interview with Dr. Dry Brock, as I said, Koray Drock, about this. So let's watch that together. I think that would be good. At least give me a couple of seconds to breathe. Right? Okay. Of course, we have technical. So can we somehow increase the audio here? I want friends in the room. By the way, friends online, we have about 20 people here. Ahsan. Oh, maybe it should be from my, let's see. Fine. Okay. Well, increase more, please. Yes. And he was the Caesar. Yes. We'll see. Of course. Mhm. Yes. Yes. Intentionally, during those research, they tried not to be engaged with the Islamic scholarship for a very obvious reason. Because, again, as I mentioned earlier, when the idea was we want to be in a secular research, not as a Shia Muslim or proving a story about mother of our Imam. So for that reason, they were actually very cognizant for two things. I remember those days we were talking, and that's one of the thoughts I actually had. I was like, we have seen, as you said, a lot of cartoons, these and that. Do not do that for these research because that will downgrade, bring it down. Oh, this is another media thing. No, no, no. This is pure academic research. Once 10, 16, yes, yes, yes. Okay. Yes, yes, yes. 100%. And it has happened actually recently. That's what I'm saying. After those, this is good. Articles were published. I think 2 years ago, there was a symposium about Imam Mahdi. So they were invited and presented in a Shi'i setting in front of Shia scholars. Because now, yes. And then today, when I was talking actually with Brother Tagavi, and he was like, now we are so thrilled that seeing these results are being discussed among Shia community. Yes. So, for example, I can share those with you that, as I said, there was a conference. Yes. Yes. That's a great idea. Yes. Inshallah. Yes. Okay. So let's watch this quick discussion or interview, if you will, with Dr. Druck, who talks about that these two titles. It's very interesting. Caesar Bardas was declared with the title and rank of Caesar in the primary sources of Byzantine. So Theodora is the empress, right? So that's why Bardas is elevated with the rank of Caesar. Okay. So, okay. So this is the book that, thank you so much. Sorry. One of the important books in the Byzantine history that it talks about, again, the administration of Bardas. As you can see, those time matches the time that we are focusing and discussing. And I don't want to, again, go to details. As I mentioned, he was very powerful and very both knowledgeable and in favor of education and knowledge. And he did a lot in the history. So now let's move forward. Again, of course, as I said, we don't want to make it very tiring, and it needs a lot of background information, discussion. I'll actually gonna share these articles if you are interested, so you can come see me afterward. And then now I want to go quickly over some of these other external historical corroborations about this story. So, in continuation of those research, as you know, when the first hard tie is opened, new gates and I mean, again, I cannot do justice explaining how hard and disappointing that very simple question was. Now we know the answer. Of course, it's easy, but they were struggling. Like, what is the solution? Of course, again, it doesn't make sense. Again, it's simple, Caesar versus emperor, but after now you get energy and motivation to continue, go to the different pieces of that story. Inshallah, I will quickly mention those. So this is important. There are some external textual evidence for this historical account that were basically persuasive to the peer reviewers. Like, I think they mentioned about like 40 of them. They were like, these are something important. Inshallah, we're gonna look at them. That it's not possible logically that an Arab Muslim historian made up those, because they didn't have access to those details of the Byzantine Empire. So I think it's a little small. I will mention some of these quickly as highlights. I refer you for if you want do more research, you can. I can share the articles with you so you can go to some details. So Bardas, the Caesar, it is recorded in history that he had a brother, Petronas, that brother had two sons. In the story, you remember, Lady Narji said, the emperor, the Caesar, my grandfather, wanted to marry me to his nephews. And that is recorded in the history that, yes, it's not just fabricated figures. There was a real brother who had sons, and their names and their life. Again, of course, not our lives here, but they are mentioned in the history, and you can go and see. This is interesting. Another aspect which is very interesting, and Lady Narjis Salamullah alayha mentioned those details, and we see, wow, there are supportive evidences, is the age of marriage. Because she says, literally, some friends, they asked me yesterday and past couple of days that, oh, what you said, that was part of, you made it just to be more amazing. I said, no, these were exact wording of what is recorded in the Kamaluddin. We just did the translation. Actually, I did copy paste from the English version. Of course, it's surprising the level of detail. She says, when I turned 13, my grandfather decided to marry me. We will see that was the customary among Byzantine nobility, that for the boys, the age of 15, and for the girls, the age of 13 was when they would, especially in the royal families, they would, yes, don't be scared. Okay, this is back then. We are good. So they would marry them when the girls are 13. So the 13, when Lady Narjis mentions, is another thing. There is another fascinating thing, which I believe they are working on it to be a separate article, is that throne. Because I think I had it, but so that's one of the unsolved mysteries, not mysteries or question. Lady Narjis calls him Yeshua. Joshua or Yeshua. Yes. Ana Malika or Mulaika bintu Yeshua ibn Qaisar Malik al-Rum. So there are Bardas. Yes. Again, I don't want to go. I mean, these are all fun and interesting things. I know, this is interesting. I had the same thing. So Bardas had married twice and had some children from first marriage, some from second. There are, if I'm not mistaken, two boys that are unnamed. So I was talking with them. I was like, that might be something that, because we know that he had sons and he married twice. Lady Narjis gave the name, which actually, let me say this. I hope I'm jumping all over the place. I'm not confusing you. I said like the end of the story. After these findings, actually, some of the details that Lady Narjis provided, again, the story that we have, helped Byzantine researchers to solve some of their unsolved questions. Because this is a first-hand report from inside the palace from a royal lady. For example, the name of Yeshua. This is not the example of that, but I'm just giving an example. The name of the son of Bardas is not recorded in the history of Byzantium. But if with all these external evidences, they are persuaded that, okay, this is an authentic report that we can pay attention to. There are a lot of details that now we are giving them. You see, this report has a lot of supportive evidence. So there are other things that you don't have in your report. We do, which actually one of them is very interesting. I'll save it for the later, inshallah. So, okay, what I wanted to say was the portable imperial wedding platforms. Lady Narjis, in details, if you remember, when she's describing the whole marriage ceremony, she's like, they raised the throne scaffold. They brought it over 40 steps, and there were a lot of jewelry on it. right? Someone say, okay, she was, or whoever fabricated that story was like having fun or imagination, and then he couldn't get married, so she was just thinking about this and that. But we see, wow, that throne, very unique throne, is mentioned in the Byzantine sources that would be assembled. I don't want to spoil it. We'll go to details that matches the details that Lady Narjis has provided. That they would bring it for special ceremonies, namingly marriage. They had to assemble it, and they were decorated. It would be very, very high, and you saw those like courts in the picture. So it was like mind-blowing event. The other thing that everyone is wondering is the earthquakes, because Lady Narjis said something very interesting, that in one night, two big earthquakes happened to the point that those crosses collapsed, the throne collapsed, and my grandfather commanded, so they erected them again and then bring the other nephew. So if such a question, is it possible that we can see a trace, at least a trace of that earthquake in the history of Byzantine? Yes, exactly. Exactly. You will be shocked if you see, wow, not only one earthquake, but earthquakes are reported in very specific time. We'll see. And then, subhanallah, this is so fascinating because Lady Narjis says, after those earthquakes, what happened? The chief of bishops, he went to my grandfather and said, you know what? This girl is evil. And these are the signs that something going crazy, and this is the demise of Christian religion. So they blamed who? Bardas. That your granddaughter is something wrong, is evil or jinni or something. It is recorded that the Bardas was blamed for those earthquakes, which caused, it's very interesting, the chief bishop, we will see that he goes to public. It's funny that in public they say something, and behind the closed doors, different story. We know the behind the doors from Lady Narjis, and we know the public lecture from the Byzantine sources, that they went and say, "Oh, rest assured, nothing happened. Everything is good. The emperor, the Bardas, is perfect. So don't accuse the king for these earthquakes." And then the release of the Muslims captives unilaterally, not in exchange, on one side. That's another thing that is very interesting. There are a lot of prisoner exchange between Abbasids and Byzantine Empire, but one of them is just one side. They just release it. And that's what we know from, again, inside the palace. Lady Narjis said, I asked my grandfather to, he asked me, because I lost appetite and everything, I said, if you can release these Muslim captives. And then last, not least, is the battle, the war, as you mentioned. Again, in the detail that Lady Narjis provided, she said, in that battle, who attended? My grandfather himself attended that war. And Imam Askari told me, Imam Hadi alayhi salam, I think Imam Askari, after she became Muslim, told me that there would be a war, your grandfather will attend, do this and that. So we have a war reported. There are actually multiple wars. One of them mentioned that Qaisar Bardas himself participated. And again, it matches the timeline of her capture. Again, not the day or Monday or Tuesday or what day of the month, but the timeline matches. Again, these are clues that confirm this story. So these are towards the end of my slide. You may see some Farsi notes here, but again, this is just, I had that disclaimer covered myself. So this is some of these quickly. We just want to see them, and inshallah, we will close our session. There is a manual of Roman law. It's called Ecloga. And then there, again, the rules, the legal system are mentioned. is mentioned, and one of the things that mentioned there is the age of marriage, as we said. The legal age of marriage, as delineated in this ecloga, is over 13 for a girl and over 15 for a boy. I know I couldn't hold myself and I spoiled some of it, but we're gonna look at it. The throne, the quote that you see is from Lady Narjis in that story. He erected a throne from the dearest of his riches, which was adorned with varieties of jewels and was raised over 40 steps. So there is a throne. It had a name, as you can see, Penta. That of course is very easy to pronounce, right? Pentapyrigen, whatever that is the name of that, which is groom's throne. It was built in the 9th century. Where is the century or the timeline of our interest, basically? During the time of Bardas. That throne was built during the time of Bardas. It was adorned with jewels. It was used for royal weddings. What else do you need? It was moved between two main halls. And again, the halls are named, the pictures, the estimated, design of those. Like there are different halls. Again, I give example from Iran, Isfahan. Some of you may have visited. Who has visited Isfahan? No, Farouk? Exactly. Raise your hand. Why you're not? So who else? No one? No else? No one else? Okay. Inshallah, razaqakumullah wa iyyakum ziyarat Isfahan. When you go there, there is a big, amazing square. I wanted to give example from National Mall, but I thought you're gonna, not like it as much. So Isfahan has like big squares similar to National Mall. There are different mosques, palaces, one mosque for ladies, one mosque for these group of royal families. They had actually underground path from the palace to the ladies' mosque, so they could go without being seen. All those. So it's very possible and imaginable that, like back then, empires they had these fancy palaces and structures and everything. So they would bring from one hall to another, set it up again, as Lady Narjis mentioned, that they brought those, assembled, and raised them. And also, it's interesting that it was like a modular structure, because she says they put them together and assembled them, right? So, like the hall and then having the event. Yes, collapsed and destroyed. So, next one is again interesting. You remember the first nephew, the first groom, what happened to him? He collapsed and felt unconscious. There's a report in history, Marianus, who was the son of the brother of Bardas. He had a brother as well. And then he suffered from a very serious illness. And someone else was able to heal him. That they reported it as a unique thing, and there were two brothers. Again, there are some links that you can look. Again, you see, we are talking about, I want to remind ourselves, an event that happened more than 1,000 years ago, and we have a report from inside the palace, which we believe that it's something in it. But when we see these evidences, clues from external, that they are corroborating, basically, right? And then in that, the earthquakes. So I think I didn't raise my hand, but anyway, Lady Narjis says the colors of bishops changed and their chest trembled. Their leader, chief bishop, said to my grandfather, "Please excuse me from facing this evil, which forebodes the demise of the Christian religion." So there is a sermon of this Photius, who is the chief of bishops, we can call it. Look at this. They say, Um, one night, there were great earthquakes. One night, there were great earthquakes. And Photius himself went up to the Ambo and said to stir up the people. You should read between the lines. Again, this is an investigation case of 1,000 years ago. That the earthquake had happened not because of a multitude of sins, but owing to an abundance of water. What is it? First of all, the one night there were multiple earthquakes. That's something. Second of all, I said this again, alhamdulillah, thanks to the political environments that we see every day, it's more understandable that when inside the palace, what happened? There was a royal marriage, everything collapsed, groom either died or went unconscious. And the bishop said to the grandfather, something wrong with you. Your daughter is evil. We are not pursuing this. Done deal. And he said, no, come back. I have another nephew, go. And after the second earthquake, they're like, bro, we are done. This is more than enough for us. So imagine the bishop, the sheikh, the whatever we call it, they were so, annoyed, or maybe they had some reason. And we see, again, there are a lot in the history that there were a lot of internal fights between power and all of that. So they were like, you are the problem. What? Are you going to say that to the public? No. He went up to the people and he went up to the Ambo and said to stir up the people because they heard it. I mean, Istanbul earthquake is not in one location, right? The entire city was going crazy. And then he went out and said, don't worry, everything is good. It's not because of the sins of the Caesar or things like that. Alhamdulillah, everything is good. When politicians say that, that means everything is messed up, right? So they're like, don't worry about it. Everything is good. It was just because of the water level. The water was so high, it caused these earthquakes. For us, more importantly, is the earthquakes, plural, in one night. And even more interestingly, the fact that they try to calm people down and say, this is not for the sins of the emperor. Alayyazubillah, don't say that our kings are fajr. That was because of the water. Again, his name, this is interesting. Again, the timeline or the years, they match our timeline. There are a lot of details about him, Photius the first. But again, he was the chief bishop in the wording that we had there in those times that matches our timeline. So I think one or two more slides and we will be done. This is the place that war happened. There are a lot into it. I don't want to go to the details. It is in the location called Samsat in Turkish nowadays. You can see this is southeast of Turkey. Sorry? I should have, but then I would be even more late here. Sorry. You can find it. It's not something. This is from Wikipedia just to show you the map, because you will see this is English, so you can feel better. In the book about the history of Eastern Roman Empire, look at this. This is my last slide. It says, okay, where should we start? Maybe here. And on the other, by the appearance in the field of the Emperor Michael himself, as well as they're explaining one of the wars, okay? Who attended Emperor Michael himself, which was a very young, maybe 13-year-old, something like that, as well as his uncle Bardas and Petrionas. Petrionas was his brother. The first expedition of Michael, who had now reached the age of 20 years, sorry, not 13, but 20. Like now he grew, so he was able to be be sent to go to the war, right? Himself. Was directed against Samosata, right? As I showed in the location, under the guidance of Bardas, Who was leading the war? Bardas, which was the grandfather of Lady Narjis, which is in confirmation of the story that Lady Narjis said the Caesar himself attended the war. So he was there. His army was at first successful and the town was besieged, but the garrison made a sudden sally on a Sunday, choosing the hour at which the emperor was engaged in the ceremonies of his religion, of course. He escaped with difficulty, and the whole camp fell into the hands of Saracens. 859. It was said that Carbiz performed prodigies of valor and captured a large number of Greek officers. So the people that they were fighting, I want to show you something. Sorry. Again, I wish I had a better map, but because this is, you may see, this is something that I was not planning to say, but let me show it to you. So this location is at the beginning of one of the branches of Euphrates, okay? So from there, where did Lady Narjis was brought to Baghdad? Imam Mahdi alayhi salam, if you remember the story, he commands Bish to go to Baghdad ala Jisr Furat. There is we have Baghdadis in the audience, right? So there is a Jisr, actually they went and tried to spot that, and there's actually a market there still exists, which is very interesting. Sorry, I will not forget, inshallah. So these researchers not only did this scholarly research, they went to kind of go the tour of the army. From Istanbul, they drove all the way to, yes, not to Baghdad, but to the place of the war to see what are the evidences. So the Euphrates, one of the top branches in Turkey nowadays, is close to that area of war, which they carried the captives by boats. Imam Hadi alayhi salam says, Bish, be there at that time and be on lookout. The boats of captives will arrive from the bridge of Euphrates, ala Jisr Furat. Baghdad is Dejle, right? Sah? But there is what is called the Jisr Furat. So there is a linkage from the place that the war happened all the way to Baghdad, and they carried. It makes sense that they would carry them, the captives, with the boats. Salamullah ala Lady Narjis. That they brought down, and this war, I now remember some enemies of Islam actually. They used to reject Imam Mahdi by saying, there was no war. These are all made up. And when I was talking with these researchers, they were like, it's not that there was no war. At the beginning, there were many wars in that timeline that we were researching. So we had actually a hard time to identify which one is the one that Lady Narjis was captured. So with a good estimation, based on all of these evidences, again, external textual evidences, matches all those details. Bardas himself attended. They were defeated. At the beginning, they were successful. There were a lot of captives they took. And then it is close to the location that was the Euphrates first. What do they call it? Like the beginning of these delta is at the end when they go to the sea. Upstream, right? Upstream of Euphrates in Turkey. Anyway, so with that, I want to conclude at least my part. Apologies, I should have been more organized. I hope I didn't confuse everyone. It was very rushed, I should say that. I am personally not happy with this, but I hope that at least started this, that we look at these story from a different, perspective now, and be more interested, inshallah. Those of you that are interested in geology or history or other things can pursue and continue these. My last thing is, do not underestimate small questions that say, okay, that's a question. Whole thing, these amazing discoveries happened because some young researchers, they were curious about these, and they didn't just say, okay, Caesar, emperor, what is the difference? No, take it serious. Again, I know that they dedicated their lives, especially Mr. Tarabi, 10 years, day and night, learning, studying, doing research, and of course, doing a lot of tawassulat to the Lady Narjis and Imam Mahdi alayhi salam, as this is their work. And alhamdulillah, it came to these results, and more to come, inshallah. There are, again, a series of these articles that inshallah will be published. So that's all I had. So let's recite the salawat, and we may have some questions and answers. Salawat. Baghdad. Baghdad. Yes. Yes. Exactly. Yes. 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 I personally don't know the details about them, but they are captured. And again, that's one of the things that uh, we should basically look into the armies that. Hmm. Oh, okay. Thank you. Exactly. What do you expect? We're talking about that's very important catch. So that's what I mentioned about the. Can you repeat the question one more time? I just want to make sure everyone understand the question. This is a very important question. Which that year was what? 859. Yes. My father has a saying, say, okay, let's not break our friendship over, you know, this, right? When I was a child, I asked him a lot to let me drive. I said, okay, let's keep our friendship. Let me drive, because if you drive, I'll go crazy and we'll break our friendship. So our friendship should not be broken for just 1 year. I'm joking. What I mean is, we are talking about 1,000 years ago. Even nowadays, okay, even in modern society, like if you go just 100 years back, if you ask your parents, your grandparents, their date of birth or year of birth, aren't there doubts? Which is under this is history. This is not math. 1 year, 2 year, even 5 years difference doesn't bother me or other researchers, because they're like, again, we are talking about 1,000 years ago. There are a lot of uh, even from a mathematical perspective, the Hijri calendar, there are always questions to start the first year as 0 or 1, for example. But those aside, of course, these are expected, these discrepancies. And this is very common in the history. If it was something like, as I said, Michael the Third, that there is no way, we pause, we say, okay, doesn't make sense. So we don't accept. But a couple of years for the earthquakes that happened, again, who knows? I don't know, but I don't know if the researchers, they have done this, that who wrote or captured this note about the lecture of chief bishop in that year. Might be plus minus 4 or 5, doesn't bother. Again, because we're talking about history. By nature, that's history. Go ahead. Which was happened earlier. So in that report, again, these are based on my very limited knowledge. it is not mentioned that in that earthquake, Bardas was in the palace. Again, because of what I mentioned. What are we expecting? That if someone, let's be realistic, 2 years from now, inshallah, we are all alive, and I see you and I say, Jawad, do you remember that night? What happened? I say, oh, I remember we went to Shah Najaf and there were people. You see what I'm saying? And then imagine you write those. That doesn't mean, alayhi you're a liar or you are intentionally fabricated something. But again, that's the nature of history and human sciences. It's not math or physics. And again, of course, that's what it is. And if actually, I tell you something very interesting. One of the, let's put the, by 8:30, we will finish, inshallah. Brother Ruhi, who did this research in history, you remember when I said the story of Bani Qurayza? Actually, one of the clues that make you believe something is fabricated is if things are 100% matchy-matchy. Because that's not the reality of history. If you have one report, and he did this research, which is very interesting. The story of Bani Qurayza, I know I'm going off topic. The way that is reported, he has found a Christian text before predating Islam with exact details. As a historian, it makes you actually believe that the second one was a copy of the first one. Because otherwise, if all of us, we can do this, experiment. I don't have power here, but if I had, I could hold you all and say, okay, I'll give you everyone's a paper. Write down what happened to you tonight from 6 p.m. to, or as soon as you entered this door till 9 p.m. I bet, although it's haram, $1 million, that every single of you will write something different. And of course, that it should be the way that is. If all of you wrote something exact the same, I'm like, you either cheated or something happened. Actually, I saw one of the university professors put something in questions, and then whoever answered that, they gave them F. Why? Because that was not what I taught. Definitely you use ChatGPT. So if all of you write the report of tonight, word by word, or 80% exactly the same, what does it tell me? When I went, for example, to make wudu, you all gathered and write it together. It is a copy paste because naturally, as a human beings, it's impossible. Two twin brothers, after attending an event, they write exact same report. You see what I'm saying? I try to make sense of, because most of us, we may have this structured mindset and maybe, again, mathematics or physics or logic. It should be logic. History is not logic. The expectation is things don't match. And I tell you what, I know I'm going to a little bit off topic. When you see different hadiths, for example, hadith Thaqalain, so one says Kitab Allah wa Sunnati, the other was I'm not talking about the Sunnati, Kitab Allah wa Itrati, but even Kitab Allah wa Itrati is recorded in different wording. Actually, that's a sign of truth, not as a fabrication. Why? Because again, naturally, it is expected when Prophet ﷺ said something, 100 people were sitting there. Even if they went home right away, they wrote it, it will not be exact matchy, which is important. That means that actually the report was authentic, right? And not conspiracy or something like that. I hope that makes sense. Absolutely. The 4 articles I can share, and I can also share the links of their academia page, which a lot more research than these are mentioned as I put it there. You can take a picture, or after this call, come to me. I will share with you, inshallah. So with that, I'm so honored. Again, this 15th of Sha'ban, without any plan, this was our rizq, inshallah, to have this discussion and last night's presentation. Inshallah, this is my last thing. One of the, if you see that, or if you hear that I went and served your mother without you knowing, for example, and reports come to you, that day, that guy just went, cleaned my mom's driveway. or did that service to my mother. What does that make you feel? So, of course, not comparing Imam alayhi salam, but this is one of the keys for all of us. If you want the attention and the prayer and a special uh, attention of any of the imams, do something for their mothers. Not at least, let's not forget Lady Narjis. Again, I didn't have time last night to mention the levels of her ma'rifah. Such a lady in the young age went through that hardship. She was having everything in a palace, but she gave up everything for the sake of Imam Askari alayhi salam and for the sake of Islam. Went through, like, it's not an easy to take out your clothes of like being a royal and just be a captive and go through that. And then other things that you know. So remember to do A'mal, Quran, Ziyarat Ashura, Ziyarat of Imam Zaman on behalf of Lady Narjis. And then with that, inshallah, Imam Zaman alayhi salam will be happy, will be more content with us, and inshallah, pray for us more and more as we show our respect and humility to his beloved mother, Lady Narjis, salamullahi alayha. So with that, let's first recite the salawat for her. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala. And then recite the dua for health and protection of her beloved son, Imam Mahdi, salawatullahi alayhi. اللهم كل وليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. اللهم اجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره وشيعته ومحبيه والفائزين بلقائه. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد صلوات.